Welcome viewers, my name's Jon Vest and I'm here today to talk about a forest insect that has made its way to Floyd County. We're going to talk about the emerald ash borer in today's timely tip, brought to you by Virginia Cooperative Extension and of course your hometown cooperative, Citizens Telephone. We're here in the spring of the year when many of us have made our ways back outside to look around what needs to be done from all the winter time that we've spent indoors and what we can accomplish in our own lawns and landscapes. And we've noticed here on this particular property a wonderful big, very old ash tree that's been around for a number of years. And unfortunately, like many of the phone calls that are coming into the Cooperative Extension office, this tree is dealing with a now insect pest that has made itself to Southwest Virginia. This particular pest is called the emerald ash borer, and it was initially located in Michigan, thought to have been brought over from Asia in pallets and shipping containers that weren't treated. And unfortunately, this particular insect pest is damaging to all of the ash trees in the state of Virginia. With a few exceptions of those ash trees that might be purchased with some Asian lineage from a new nursery, most of our existing ash trees are all susceptible to this insect pest. And just like this big tree that's standing here beside me, this is some of the damage that we see as landowners when we start walking out on our property this spring. This particular ash tree is probably well over 75 years old, and we have the characteristic damage here that's oftentimes associated with the emerald ash borer. This particular insect is causes all its damage largely sight unseen. In fact, as we're nearing the end of spring and early summer, the adult insects will actually be emerging out of the tree, mating, and then laying their eggs all over the bark and within the recesses and crevices of the bark that's on the main surface of the tree. Unfortunately, each female can lay between 50 up to 100 eggs, even more so. And what's unique, instead of laying them all together, as she's traveling the tree, she'll lay individual eggs, and as they hatch and the larvae start to drill their way in underneath your bark layer, they set up home and begin eating on the living cambium portion of the tree just located below the bark system. What we're seeing here as we walk out in our lawns and landscapes and first notice the damage, usually from year 1 through year 2, we'll see where the woodpeckers have actually started making it to the tree. They've realized that there's chewing going on below the bark, and they start to basically rasp off or pull off the outermost layer of bark, trying to make their way and reach the insects below. As this continues, what we typically see is the initial signs where the borer entry has occurred and where the exit has also occurred as well in these distinct D-shaped holes, which we'll show you in just a moment. The overall appearance of our tree, as we look up toward our first lower limb up top, as a homeowner or a landowner, we start to notice that the tree takes on a whitened appearance along those large scaffold limbs and down the trunk where this damage continues to occur. As the insect itself feeds and makes its way along that cambium layer, it basically girdles the tree and all its conductive tissue, the part that actually conducts the sugars and the water and the nutrients up and down just below the bark system. And with that being said, the tree starts a slow decline that progresses yearly until it can no longer support itself with its necessary nutrients and food transport. The overall life cycle of the emerald ash borer is one that right here coming up in this May-June time frame is when we'll see those adult insects emerging. And that'll continue on into July with some latecomers as late as August, early August. But during that time they'll mate and they'll lay eggs. Those eggs will hatch and make their way inside. From a forest perspective, we don't have the means of eradicating this particular insect. So it's going to be very damaging to our overall native stands and overall forest stands of ash trees. However, For the homeowner that has the individual ash tree, or that particular tree that maybe they've planted and they really want to take care of, we can provide some suggestions through the Cooperative Extension Service on products that we can spray or actually drench around the base of the tree that can be absorbed by the tree's root system, and then the further or continued feeding will actually, the insects will get a dose and are killed that way. So we can preserve those specimen trees or the desired individual trees within a lawn or landscape with an insecticide in many cases. The emerald ash borer's full life cycle actually continues for a full year. What will happen is once the young larvae have made their way back into that June, July time frame and begun feeding, they'll continue to feed on up into fall, even early winter. At that point, everything basically slows down from a feeding perspective, and then in this April-May time frame, the young larva the following year will pupate and emerge as the adult, beautifully shiny metallic green beetle, and the process is begun all over again. What I'm actually holding here is a piece of ash firewood where we had another tree taken down out in the Bent Mountain region of Roanoke County, another area between Floyd and Roanoke that seems to be infested with this particular insect. This is the type of rasping and removal of bark that oftentimes gives homeowners their initial indication that something is going wrong with the tree. This is the area, and like I said, it appears whitened when you're looking from a tree at a distance, and it's basically because all the outermost layer of bark is now being peeled off by the woodpeckers, and that's giving indications. You actually see where the woodpeckers are making their way deeper and deeper into the tree. You'll start to notice the D-shaped holes as they progress. Eventually, as we start to see more and more wood removed, we get into a situation where we can actually see what the damage or what type of damage has occurred below the bark layer, sight unseen. Lots of S galleries where the larval form of the insect has basically traveled just below the bark layer, eating away at the cambium tissue, and in a sense, girdling your tree. Allowed to progress with nothing done, this is what we are left with regards to there's no conductive tissue remaining underneath that bark system of the tree. And with no ability to transport nutrients and material up or down within that area, the tree starts to gain that appearance where the upper limbs die off branch by branch, and the progressive dieback that we see in the top of the ash due to this borer's damage. I wanted to show you an opportunity, or take the opportunity to show you what the actual insect looks like. This is a picture of the emerald ash borer, and we took this picture, or Mr. Eric Day from Virginia Tech provided us this picture of the adult insect located right here, and it's preparing to emerge from the tree or out from underneath the bark this time of year or in the upcoming month. Basically, the adult insect is about the length, or its length is about the size of a dime, and it has that beautiful metallic green outside covering, and when it flies, its base body has a beautiful red or purple red color to it. So it's a lovely insect, but a highly destructive one at that. Now that we've had an opportunity to look at the signs and symptoms and the overall damage that this particular insect causes, let's talk about how we can proactively prevent this damage and save those individual ash trees that are in your lawn and landscape. The nice thing about many of the products that are available to homeowners these days are that many are systemic, meaning that we can apply an insecticide on the ground at the base of the tree. And as the tree naturally takes up its own water along with that insecticide, anything that feeds on the interior portion of that tree is then killed. So it makes a very effective means for us to get at this insect below the bark layer. The important thing to remember is the proactiveness. Once we see more than 25% to up to 50% damage up on our main trunks and lower scaffold limbs, the tree is usually beyond saving with regards to an insecticide. So now is that ideal time, as we're approaching the May time frame when these adults will start emerging, to consider a systemic insecticide applied around the base of your tree, enabling that several weeks for it to be absorbed and moved up into the tree's canopy. So later on in June, when those young larvae start making their way in and feeding on the tree, we have an ability to take them out at that life cycle or that stage in their life cycle and really do them in. So once again, a timely tip: remember, if you're going to treat your emerald ash borer and you have any further questions, contact your Virginia Cooperative Extension office. We can talk to you about the timing, the remedies or suggestions with regards to insecticides. Would be very glad to help you out in any of your concerns.